What's going on, guys? Welcome to the Pride Detroit YouTube channel. I'm Meko, once again joined by my guy Morgan here. And Morgan, we have the Bears lined up again this week. Lions looking to go to 10-3 on the season. And I think we have a really interesting film study set up for the people today. We've obviously already played the Bears. We've also already done a film study of the Bears, so we know some of the top players. We know how the last game with the Bears went because we highlighted some of those plays. But I do think there's an opportunity here to take a deeper dive back into that film and kind of pinpoint some things that the Lions struggle with and try to figure out if there's a better way that they can, defend this Bears team so that this game isn't nearly as close as the last one.
Right, that's the hope, Miko, because you came into that game with Fields. That was the first game he was healthy after being banged up for a while there. And initially, the Bears tried running one offense with him where they kind of kept him more stagnant in the pocket, and that's when they started 0-4. And then they came out against the Lions and kind of tapped back into that offense they were running when he was ripping it last year. When he was really kind of lighting the league on fire for a little bit there. It took more of that, QB power, read option, that kind of thing. So, yeah, and I'm hoping we'll get into it here, but I'm hoping the Lions come out prepared this time, just because that's probably what you're going to end up facing. So, yeah, that's what I'm hoping for, Miko.
Yeah, I think, preparation is probably the biggest thing that I'm right there with you, right? Hoping they're a little more prepared for this matchup. Also hoping that again, from an offensive standpoint, that we're not going to see the same type of, turmoil that we saw, a couple weeks ago. I don't think we're going to go into this game and see Jared Goff turn it over 3 times. Just as a heads up to everybody watching, those are not going to be some of the plays we break down. We did break down, I think, 2 of his interceptions against the Bears a couple weeks ago in our top plays breakdown. So if you do want to see our analysis and what we think went wrong on those turnovers, I'll link that video in the description. You can go back on the channel. You can watch those videos and kind of get an understanding of what happened with those. But primarily today, Morgan, yeah, we're going to talk about the defense and just, again, kind of get an idea of how they can be better and be better prepared for some of the things that the Bears want to do on offense.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm excited to see, this is where the Lions, some of their youth is going to shine, right? Like this is where they're going to have big games again from Jack Campbell, Derek Barnes, Hutch, Pascal, you name it, Brian Branch. So yeah, we're flashing back to what is this, the first play of the game, right, Miko, where they just go to this power look here.
Yeah. One of the first plays early in the game where they went straight to this well pretty early on.
Yeah, just look at this alignment here, right? Like Chicago has a bunch of bodies over to the left. And yeah, just like you said earlier, Miko, this was done from the jump for the Lions just because Chicago had numbers pre-snap, right?
Yeah, absolutely. When you have this many bodies, you know, leaning to one side of the offensive line, it makes it much more difficult for everyone to be able to get out, to that side, be able to, form an edge and be able to, keep the quarterback from getting a big gain like this one.
Yeah, and it's like they almost run like a pin and pull action too, Chicago. So it's an interesting design, and they really went into their bag pretty early in terms of like the different looks they were running. But yeah, you see that the tight end actually, I don't know if that's Komet out there, 85. He ends up sealing the edge, and then you get 70, the left tackle, pulling in space. So that's a tough play. And then you got Cam Sutton out there who has a left tackle barreling down on him, and then Justin Fields is just behind. So yeah, I'm sure this is something that AG and the rest of the defensive staff looked at this week, and they're like, hey, we got to be better prepared for this because we were honestly lucky that this didn't bust for more, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think again, if you're the Lions and you're breaking this play down, I think you're probably calling out a couple guys. You're probably looking at Hutch and being like, hey, when a tight end lines up outside of opposite you, handle that,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
I mean that's the best you can kind of look for, because when you have numbers like we just saw in that type of play, that's the best you can do is look to interrupt that early. Um, but again, like you said, that's something that the Bears try to go to early, is that quarterback power type of run, scheme. They also like to run a good amount of read option as well, which is something else that the Lions struggled with early in that game, but eventually kind of found their rhythm later on.
Yeah, and it was something, more leaning towards the adjustment that happened during the course of that game. The Lions ended up going with more of a five-man front. and that just helped combat the bodies that the Bears are throwing at the running game. Because I don't think people realize the reason, these, we talked about it in the Saints breakdown, but the reason some of these quarterback power, concepts are favorable is because you already have an extra body you can throw in terms of run blocking because the quarterback has the ball. I know that
Yeah,
seems simple, but I think people forget, like, when you hand it off to a running back from the quarterback, you're down one player, right? So the defense is
facts.
operating with, it's just a numbers thing. So it does make it more difficult because it's just another body they can throw at you. And when Fields is carrying the ball, he's so dynamic in space, and he is probably the fastest player on the field of this screen that we're looking at here. So yeah, Pascal gets caught peeking here, right?
Yeah, this is something that I think the Lions, again, what kind of forced this adjustment later on is that they were seeing a lot of their edge players just crashing on this read option action. And it was making it just easy for Fields to just pull and then have all of this open space to, again, be able to pick up a lot of yardage. And you're putting your second and third tier of your defense at a real big disadvantage when they're trying to find the right angle to be able to limit these types of plays.
Yeah, Miko, and honestly, not a bad job by Derek Barnes here of being like, I mean, I think he's contained here. He gets wide, he keeps his outside shoulder free, and he's able to use his own speed to at least force Fields out of bounds. Because again, man, that's a bad situation for Pascal. He crashes down, tries to tackle Herbert,
Yeah.
and yeah, that's just a bad situation. Luckily, Barnes is there, and Barnes did a good job once they changed, because a lot of the times they had Barnes standing up on the edge in the second half, setting edges and being the contained player, and he did a good job a couple times. I remember of keeping Fields at bay. So yeah, again, like I said earlier, it's going to come down to a lot of these young players for the Lions. These, people who are in their players who are in their first, second, and third years. They're going to have to come ready to play, because I would assume the Bears are going to go back to this offense, right?
Yeah, I think if you're the Bears and you're coming out of that game, I think you're feeling like, hey, we had some things that were working offensively, this being one of them. And I think you will try to go back to this well, especially if you get this type of defensive alignment. Um, because like you said, this kind of does lean to the favor of the offense. They have more players that they can block with, and you're going to definitely test and see like, hey, is this defensive line still going to crash on this action? And Justin Fields beat the linebacker and turn this into an even bigger play because, like you said, Derek Barnes does do a great job limiting this and keeping it from being a first down. But it also changes their offensive script. Now they don't have to worry about this being second and long or third and long. It's now second and manageable or third and short. And now they have more plays that they can utilize to potentially get that first down.
Yeah, Miko. I think it's going to be interesting to see what personnel the Lions opt to go with this week too. Like when we see the inactives, because if I had to guess, they're going to take away some bodies from the interior. Maybe like not go with as many. I know Liam's already out, so we'll see who dresses in terms of the nose tackles and the three techniques. But it's going to be a game where I think Barnes will see extra reps, but I don't think it will be at the Mike or the Will, especially if Anzalone's up.
Yeah.
He might see more reps at the Sam, and just that stand up edge spot, just because that's going to have to you're going to have to use that kind of player to slow down Fields.
Yeah, I think it's also a possibility that you see a Julian Okwara maybe get activated for this game because again,
Mm-hmm.
you're just looking for another
Athletes.
athletic edge that can just basically help with contain, has the ability to go sideline to sideline, but still be able to be utilized in other situations where if you need him to drop in coverage or things of that nature. But Morgan, so it's one thing, right, for us to sit here and be like, hey, they need to be better at defending these types of quarterback runs. It's one thing to say that. I think it's another thing to see it in practice. And so one thing that's going to be unique about this, film study that we're doing is we're going to take a look at how another team played the Bears and dealt with similar concepts and how they defended it. And I think we get a really good benefit in this regard that right after the Bears played us, they went straight to Minnesota and had to play another NFC opponent. And this game looked drastically different than the game that we played against them.
Yeah, and Minnesota still lost because they turned the ball over, what, 5 times, you said, Miko? I know Dobbs had
Uh,
4 picks.
Yeah, so four. I actually went and looked at the final tally. It says four, so I guess they did
Oh.
fumble a couple times, but didn't lose those fumbles. So But yes,
four turnovers.
yeah. So they were in the same boat we were, 4 turnovers,
Yeah.
but the game looked drastically different.
Yeah, and it's because they came ready to play, and I do think it helped Minnesota that the Lions were the first team that the Bears sprung this new look, because they had some extra wrinkles in there, and I know we're going to get into them, where they were layering calls, but yeah, like if you'll notice here, Minnesota came ready. They're like, all right, we know what they're going to do, so they came ready with that 5-man front. So look for the Lions to come out. Especially early downs, they're going to come with this kind of alignment and this kind of personnel. If I had to guess, just because this is what happens, rather than trying to do things. You're not putting players in a bind. You're not asking them to two gap as much because it's going to be tough to two gap against Fields. And what I mean by two gap is normally on a defense, you're going to be uh, responsible for one gap. But in certain defenses, like the ones Matt Patricia and the Patriots and like those guys kind of run, the Belichick's of the world, you're going to have them two gapping a lot of the time. So you're going to have nose tackles and sometimes closed defensive ends like a Trey Flowers technique that are Trey Flowers kind of player that are going to be responsible for two gapping. So yeah, this is what I want because you're going to have guys are going to have more room to make plays and get upfield and do make plays like this, right, Miko?
Yeah, I mean, you have less, movement, right? You don't have to worry about again losing that numbers battle because again, you have 5 guys on the line. You have a linebacker that can easily get over and not have to worry about a guard or tight end moving up to that next level. But then, like, I also want to point out, like, look at what the defensive tackle does to this tight end, right? Number 52 gets double teamed by the tight end and the left tackle here, and he's just like, cool, eats the block, defeats the block, and is able to make this play on Fields. Like you're able to do that with more bodies in there. Not every, like you said, no one's trying to two gap, no one's trying to knife in or penetrate. It's just like, hey, let's just hold up and then get rid of the blocks in front of us so that we can make these plays.
Yep, and to your point too earlier, Miko, like this is the play. This is what I expect out of guys like Hutch and Pascal and everyone on the defensive line. Really, if Komet's trying to block them one on one, okay, you got to be able. They got to win one on ones, and this is what 52 does here. Like Komet has him, or he thinks he has him, and then 52 just he shucks him like last week's laundry, and makes the play. This is nice.
Yeah,
Hits him extension. Ugh.
This is the type of stuff that you want to see because again, double teams happen, and when you're one of your team's best defensive linemen, like Hutch, or again, if the offensive line just feels like, oh, this side of the line is weaker, so we're going to double this side. You got to have the proper technique to be able to take on that double team, but still be able to work through it so that you can make a play. And it's not, like I said, it's not always through just penetrating through the defensive line. Sometimes it is just being able to man up, take the block, and work your way through it, form a wall in a sense, because that's what Minnesota essentially did on this play. They made a wall, and Justin Fields had to stop his feet, and now he can't just, again, gash you for, 7-8 yards on a quarterback power.
Yeah, great point, Miko. That's what you don't want. We talked about it earlier. Like, there's going to be some plays where inevitably Fields scrambles for a few yards up the sideline or what have you. But I don't think what you really don't want is Fields running loose in the middle of the field through your secondary, right? Because then he's wasting no time running sideline to sideline. He's just using his crazy speed to just gash you in the middle, like you said. So yeah, we need to, that's what needs to not happen. That's what I don't want to see Sunday.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've covered again being able to cover, properly defend these different types of quarterback runs, whether it's the read option, whether it's QB power. And then the next play that we're going to look at, this is about staying disciplined in your rush lanes. And again, we just talked about it. Play action kind of is a part of this because the Bears were able to have so much success running the ball with Fields, with some of the running backs. You get a lot of guys that are just playing towards the run in this situation. And I think look at this entire D line. These guys all bite on the play action, and it leads a big hole in this defense for Justin Fields to take advantage of.
Yeah, and this is, we just talked about it a second ago, but for whatever reason, the Lions are in man here, and it's tough because that this is what can happen, right? You talked about it, the 3 linemen. Let's see who it is: Benito, Aleem, and Josh Pascal. they all flow to Herbert. So they definitely bite on the action. For a little bit there, there's not even a lion in the screen.
Yeah, I mean, it's it's as wide open as like I don't know, like that's scary. The fact that Justin Fields wasn't able to score, and it's probably because he saw Alex Anzalone. He was just like, you know what, I'll
Let me
get the,
not.
I'll just take the touchdown on the next play. Like it's not
Yep.
worth me, possibly getting concussed here.
Yep. Absolutely. Yeah. And yeah, this is why I just we just talked about it a second ago, but I want to see some more zone because you do this and you're just almost giving Fields yardage.
Yeah, and I think again, like you see your entire D line flowing one way. I personally I would like to see them again, once again, form a wall, right? Just like try to keep everything in front of them. So that way, not only does this not happen, but like Justin Fields only has the opportunity to kind of either basically just continue to drop back and you're hopefully your coverage is going to hold up, or maybe someone finally breaks through and is able to pressure him, but at least everything is in front of you and not everyone, basically fanned out to the sidelines.
Yeah, I completely agree because you want to make them earn it. That's kind of I think my theme here is just make them earn it. Like make them run a competent offense for 60 minutes. That's what I want to see rather
Yeah.
than having them like bust three chunk plays and that being the difference in the game.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, Lions not so successful on that particular play of again keeping Fields excuse me, keeping Fields in the pocket and, rallying to the football. Minnesota, a little bit of a better game plan, like you were saying. It just seems like they were a little more prepared for these types of plays, and really were able to execute the plan of again trying to keep Justin Fields in the pocket and basically forcing him to beat them from there.
Yeah, and they were aggressive about it too, which is what I like. You have to. It's like controlled aggression against a quarterback like Fields because otherwise you can get burned. So yeah, they do a good job here. It's a 5-man front, and 90 actually for whatever reason is unblocked. I think he's as surprised as we are for a second, and Fields still gets away, and yeah, you were right, Miko. He gets called on. They call this a sack.
Yeah.
It would have been a sack or intentional grounding because he didn't get this ball to the line of scrimmage. So yeah, this is. I want to see more of this, man. Heat him up. Just I don't want them to be afraid of blitzing him, right? Like I do want heat him up on obvious passing downs.
Well, yeah, and I mean, again, they do. They send 44. 40 is kind of just like kind of hanging around at the line. But then like that the rest of this is just the 5-man front, like just getting after him. And I, like you said, I don't think it's necessarily like, hey, anyone did anything special. No one's trying to be super aggressive and trying to penetrate. Everyone's just again forming a wall. Let's keep everything in front of us. And 90 is the lucky one who doesn't get blocked because again, you have 5 linemen to go against their 5 linemen, plus the tight end who basically turns outwards to deal with the pass rush or with the edge there. It opens things up really well, to again just be able to limit what Justin Fields is able to do and basically help them get off the field a little bit better.
Yeah, and this is something to your point too, Miko. I would love to see Brian Branch in this role, like that 44 for the Vikings. Josh Metellus is in because
Yeah.
he basically he's setting the edge. You can tell how he's playing it. He's got contained, and he stays deep with Fields. We'll see on this angle. You won't see him as the ball snapped, but you'll see him come into the screen. Watch how he jumps out. He stays. He widens to make sure Fields stays in the pocket. Back in, back out, and then
Yep.
he's the one who I'm pretty sure he's going to get credit for the sack or at least a half sack. So yeah, this is a good angle of it. So
And
gets
this is what I
downhill.
I think this
Nice.
is a
Go
good
ahead.
example of like controlled aggression, right? Like because
Yeah.
you want to be able to get after the quarterback, you want to be able to light him up, get hits on him. But what's the point of being super aggressive or sending a blitz if the quarterback is athletic enough to just avoid it? Which is some of the things, like I said, that the Lions dealt with. There were plenty of times where whether it was Brian Branch, Aiden Hutchinson, Josh Pascal, like these guys were able to get close to Fields, but then his athleticism would just be the trump card in on that particular down, and he was able to just outrun them and get to the edge. And that next thing you know, he's picking up yards instead of doing what happens here in Minnesota, which is losing yards.
Yeah. Got to stay disciplined. Don't try to be a hero. be mindful of your angles. To your point, Miko, and yeah, no flybys. So like our controlled aggression point, like that's they're gonna. I want them to blitz him, but I don't want them to you're just flying and then he steps out of the way and then now the Lions are down a defender and he's running loose in the secondary because that's when we don't want that. So
Well, and it's like it's kind of like Dan Campbell says, right? Like playing, being able to adjust on the fly. So whether that's playing the run and then adjusting to it being passed, like if you want to play that as if like, oh, this might be a run, so let me contain. Oh, it's a pass. Cool. Now I can go. At least again, you give your defense an opportunity for everyone else to get set. You have a possibility of Justin Fields stopping his feet because he's like trying to survey the field. And now you can make a play. Now you can try and get rid of that running back or tight end that's trying to chip you. And then again, allow the rest of your defense to rally in that situation. Um, but again, I think it's easier said than done, but I think you and I are both on the same page where we're hoping that this is the stuff that the Lions coaches are hammering home so that this game can be a little bit more reflective of this. Because if not for the fact that Minnesota was turning the ball over left and right, they probably blow Chicago out because of how
yeah,
they were just playing so well defensively.
100% Miko. Like if their offense was halfway functioning that day, they win that game by 2 scores. So, but
Yeah.
it
So
wasn't.
one other thing that the Lions do, in my opinion, Morgan, need to definitely have cleaned up before they head over to Chicago this week is another technical thing in tackling. Because this was another like common theme in this game where again the Lions won. Like I hate that we're talking about this as if they lost because they did win, but the game was just more complicated and more difficult than it probably needed to be. And part of that was because of plays like this where guys had opportunities to get off the field or be able to limit yardage and just were not able to make tackles in space. And next thing you know, instead of getting off the field or forcing a punt or a long field goal, you're now, on the field for another 1st and 10.
Yeah, this is a theme, like you said. I was frustrated. This was down in our end zone, and this is it wasn't a backbreaker because it wasn't like at the end of the game and it didn't put the game away. But yeah, they got to. We talked about it earlier. Populate to the football, man. Run to the football because had Kirby Joseph hung on to DJ Moore for just another Mississippi, Hutch is there.
Yeah.
But he doesn't. And then even when Hutch and everyone gets there, DJ Moore still drags. This is an impressive play from Moore because he drags Hutchinson across the first down marker. So good play by Moore. But like you said, Miko, wrap up, man. Get guys on the ground.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think that's like the reoccurring theme on this play is just like right. Kirby could do a better job of tackling in space here. Hutch could do maybe a slightly better job of getting him to the ground. I think he was trying to strip the ball here.
Yeah, and we heard Campbell talk about it the other day. I think it was Dan Campbell. They teach like that first person gets there and
Hmm.
wraps him up, and everyone else populate to the football and get that ball out, man. Because that's something the Lions do need more of. I would love to see some more of as we get some more turnovers on Sunday. Be it
Yeah.
a couple interceptions, fumble, recovery, get that offense some extra possessions, get off the field, and I think the Lions come away with the dub.
No, for sure. And so again, that's not just us saying it and then they're not being an example of it. Again, Minnesota had their opportunities to again be able to make plays in space. And again, it's the difference between getting off the field or again just continuing to keep a team behind the sticks. This was 2nd and long. So again, there's no threat of necessarily getting a first down on this play, but do you still want to keep that opposing offense, behind the sticks and keeping them, in a situation where they don't get a third and manageable? And again, Bynum does a really good job. Not a form tackle, not a technique, technical tackle, but again, he does a good job of getting his guy down on the ground so that his defense gets to a really good opportunity on a 3rd and long here.
Yeah, and I'm always cool with DBs tackling like this because sometimes you got to tackle big dudes in open space and just get them on the. If you want to chop at their legs and you get them on the ground, this is good violence to me, good controlled violence. So yeah, this is and to the Lions corners like Cam Sutton and Jerry have been solid tackling this year. They've had some missed tackles, but nothing crazy. So they're going to need more of that. And again, this is where this could be another banner day for Brian Branch, man, because he's going to be playing in the box a lot just because of how the Bears are probably going to dictate the game in terms of when they're on the field offensively. So yeah, I want another Big Brian Branch day, Big Jack Campbell day. Tracy tackling well, who historically has, but yeah,
Yeah,
gonna need everybody's gonna have to bring their A game in terms of being ready to hit some people.
yeah, no, absolutely. I think that's probably another resounding message that this coaching staff is going to make to this defense is that listen, we need guys to tackle well, right? And I think, like you said, they have a number of guys that have done that well throughout the course of the season. Brian Branch has done it. Tracy's done it. Uh, Jack Campbell, for the most part, has done it. I feel like he's been really good in tackling in space. Alex Anzalone has done it.
Hmm.
Kirby has struggled, and I think like I didn't pull that play specifically to call out Kirby's tackling, but like Kirby has kind of struggled in that regard, and I think that's something that it's a little shocking because last year he was such a good tackler in space. He put some really big hits on guys, and so this year I don't know what it has been, what's really been going on with him, but you know if there's a player on that defense that I'm looking at like, hey, you got to be better in space. Kirby's probably the first person that kind of comes to mind for me.
I'm with you there, Miko, and it's a little bit of a sophomore slump. I just feel like he needs a couple big plays. Like he had the pick a couple weeks ago. Needs a couple big plays, get him feeling good because like all the abilities there, he knows what to do. You hear the coaches talk about it.
Yeah.
But then, here and there, he's out of position, and I gotta just think it's him trying to do too much almost, like because he knows the secondary. I don't know. It's like pressing. I think he's pressing a little bit. If I had to just put
Yeah,
it in
I
simple
think
terms.
I think it's a little bit of that. I definitely think he's pressing a little bit, and I also think like they're utilizing him in some ways that I don't even think he's necessarily comfortable with. And so I
Right.
think there's been a little bit more thinking on his part, and he's not able to just go out there and ball like he was able to do last year. Um,
Right.
but with that said, you had said to me before we started recording, like you're not super worried about this, about this game going forward. You're not as concerned about the Bears this time around. Um, why do you think that is?
Just because we talked about it a little bit earlier. I just think the first time the Lions played the Bears, they were in this like, okay, what offense are they going to run? Are they going to run that offense they were trying to run when they started 0-4? Or are they going to go back to the option stuff that they're running and the power centric stuff, the QB power centric? So this time you kind of what they're probably going to, if they want to go back to that offense where they keep them in the pocket, cool. But you kind of
Yeah.
know they're going to come out with this option heavy stuff. So I think they'll spend a good chunk of the week installing a lot of their 5-man front looks. Make sure their personnel is all squared away. I just think, and then like you said before, Miko, if the Lions don't turn the ball over, what did they turn? They turned the ball over 4 times against the Bears.
Yeah, 3 interceptions, one fumble by Craig Reynolds. So yeah,
Yep, on the kickoff. Yeah, you're right. So yeah, it's just it would be a tough. I believe, in my opinion, this is my prediction. I just think it would be uh, a bunch of events like that would need to happen again for the Lions to lose to the Bears. Even though it is in Soldier Field, it's going to be cold and windy, what have you. But just a better football team at this point.
no, and I agree with you. I think the Lions are in a really good position where you've played the Bears, and yes, they know what you're going to run and they know what you would like to run. But we've seen this Bears offense run one of two ways, right? It's either a lot of running with Justin Fields at the helm, or it's this other option where they try to have him navigate from the pocket. And I think because you were able to figure out the former, you were able to figure out what how to stop him as a runner in that second half of that game. You should be just as prepared for that, even in Soldier Field, where it's like, all right, well, this is the offense that you guys are going to run, 5-man front. And
Yep.
the best part about the 5-man front is it still works if they decide to be like, hey, we're going to drop back and pass a few times as well. Like you can still be aggressive with that front. So I'm definitely in the same boat as you. I'm not overly concerned. The only concern really is that the Lions don't learn from their mistakes. If they're not able to adapt and you know fix some of the things that went wrong, if you know honestly, even with Aline possibly not playing this week, I still think the Lions have a really good chance of plugging another player in and still being able to contain that middle of the defensive line.
Yeah. Personnel is definitely having Ragnow and McNeil out. That's tough. That's your two best interior players on either side of the ball. But yeah, it's just I would hope Ben Johnson. I'm kind of hoping for a Ben Johnson bounce back game because I haven't loved some things here as of late, and I know that's
Yeah,
tied to Goff playing a little bit some spotty football. So I would love a Ben Johnson masterclass where the offense just puts up a nice, 35-point piece, and then the defense gets a few stops, and on to 10-3. That's what I want.
Yeah, I would love to. Yeah, I mean, I think I would just as well love to see like a Jared Goff revenge game, right? Like, all right, you guys got me for 3 picks, in the last one, here goes 3 touchdowns, like
That's what I
something of
need. I
that
need it.
nature,
Two
you
to
know.
JMO, one to Saint, something like that.
Yeah, something of that nature. So listen, that's going to kind of do it for this video, guys. Those are some of the things that we chose to highlight in regards to, again, things that the Lions need to at least fix and what it could possibly look like if they fix those things when they play the Bears this Sunday. But if you're looking for any more content related to the Lions, you can always head over to pridedetroit.com and check out any of the latest articles we've uploaded over there. Also, be sure to hit the subscribe button on this YouTube channel. That way you can be notified of any new videos that we upload or anytime that we go live. And yeah, that's pretty much going to do it, guys. With all that said, I'm Miko. He's Morgan. Thanks for taking the time to watch. And we'll catch you guys in the next one.